Hello, everyone. Thank you for that awesome intro. Yeah, it's so crazy to be on this stage again. Like, I remember back in February, it was super surreal, and this is still really surreal, mainly because, I'm a New York City kid through and through, grew up in Harlem, graduated from City College, used to take the megabus, like, right around here to go to, out of state and stuff. So to just be on this stage at the Javits Center, which obviously is a iconic venue, means a lot. So thank you to B&H for having me again. And thank you all for coming to this talk. I like to keep things very punny, dad jokes are my vibe. I love, just keeping things light, and I tried to make something that felt reflective of my own take as a fashion photographer. And when they first reached out to me about this, I was a little wary at first, imposter syndrome and stuff. I'm like, well, technically, I consider myself more photojournalism, portraiture, but obviously with the really awesome assignment last year of working with the Met, and even before that, different versions of fashion photography that I've done, I kind of, as I made this presentation, realized more and more of how I wanted to approach my own kind of perspective, and maybe empower those of you who maybe don't necessarily think you want to be a fashion photographer, but kind of want another take or another perspective from someone else's experience. So we can, yes, okay, so we can start with my title slide. So this is an amazing outfit, first and foremost. And again, kind of like what I was just saying with this sort of mesh of fashion photography and also my own style of photography. I wanted to start with this picture from 2021. This is a Victoria's Secret model, and she was getting ready to go to the Met. They had a little gathering, basically in the lobby taking photos. And so yeah, this is how to hustle and flow with fashion photography with Flo Ngala. Let's go. Okay, so I always like to start off with my own definitions of things. I try and not look them up and just think about what comes to mind when I think about certain words. So for me, with hustle, I just thought about moving quickly, moving at a quick pace. Obviously, to acquire money methodically, strategically, that's another way of hustling. And then on the contrast, flow, short for Florence, my name, and then also meaning to move with ease, or if you think about water, obviously it's kind of a continuous stream or a flow of water. I like both of these words because you hear them kind of, pop culturally put together, whether or not it's the movie or just the phrase hustle and flow. I'm not sure exactly where it came from at first, but they kind of do mean opposite things and obviously can work together at the same time. And I feel like that kind of brings me into my first tangent, which is how I got my first fashion photography gig. I'll keep this kind of short, but I always like to start with a little bit of a backstory. In 2016, I was a junior at City College. I took this photo of someone during Fashion Week, which is starting tomorrow officially, and the person had put it up online. I got a DM a few days later from a friend of hers saying hey, I saw this photo you took of my friend Amy, and my name is Sophie Zinga. I'm a designer from Senegal. And literally, she asked me to go to Senegal. So I'm 21, and I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm getting on a flight. And she's like, no, you're not. Where are you going? We ended up, on Skype and having to make sure this was a real person and nothing dangerous, obviously. But, we've all been there when you get that first gig or that first thing that really excites you. So this was really what it was for me. And ironically, my work now kind of has veered a little bit more from the kind of aesthetic here. So, you'll see kind of where I still show my own, visual eye that feels like this, but this is from 7 years ago. So still one of my favorite bodies of work ever. The models didn't speak as much English. I don't speak as much French. So it was also a really interesting language barrier, but just the hustle of, getting on a flight, I had no lighting assistant. Obviously, I was just in Dakar, Senegal, running around. So that was a little bit of the hustle energy that I thought of and why I wanted to put it in here. And then the flow, obviously, in the pictures, in the water behind them, just the setting, I just felt like the synergy of the day was really beautiful. So that's kind of where the hustle and flow term first took me as far as my photo career. And then before that, this is sort of what I was doing in my apartment. So I've always been really into self-portraits. I think, I don't know if anyone here does it of themselves, but I think it's really a great way to learn about your camera, learn about just the lighting you like, the editing, and so on and so forth. And so these images on the far left, those two were commissioned by like a magazine after they saw photos that I would post on my Tumblr. I used to post a lot of photos on my Facebook. And so on the far right, it's a portrait from 2015. I'm from West Africa, so the fabrics I'm wearing are my mom's. And a lot of people think that the far right photo is photoshopped, but that's actually just a garment that African women will tie around their waist. And again, just kind of going back to the backstory of, before the Met, obviously, before kind of how my career is formally known as now, these were sort of the ways that I was thinking about fashion photography, or the ways that I was implementing fashion into my own photography. So I just wanted to acknowledge this young, less jaded girl. So here we are now. This is a bit more of like what you guys are really here for. So basically I put a few slides together. I shared brief tips and try to keep it really straightforward. I know you guys are immersed in a lot of amazing information and education today. And so I'll leave a few minutes for questions at the end, but I just kind of put my photos that I thought were related to the tips together. And so we'll kind of go step by step. So first hustle tip. You're never really finished at a location. There are infinite angles and perspectives. Practice minimizing location moves and maximizing perspective views. So we've all been there where it's like, maybe we had a plan for what the run of show would be. Maybe we thought, we would do 3 locations and 50 outfits and this and that, and whether that's just shooting by ourselves or with a crew and so on and so forth. And when you think about hustle, right, going back to those first slides I showed of just like moving quickly and keeping things moving, I found that one of the easiest places to start is just minimizing how much you move around. So if I stood right here and like took a photo this way, there's just, to me, right, an infinite, I hope this is still working, but there's an infinite amount of actual perspectives or angles that I could shoot in just this one spot, right? Not to talk if I sat next to you or if I sat back there with you. So when working maybe on a timeline or trying to minimize like the kind of logistics of moving around, I thought these were a good example of 2 pictures where it's like, obviously you see, the close-up shot, she's against that background, she's against the leaves, and then on the right you see a completely different image, which is in the same environment. And that automatically, to me, at least in fashion photography, feels like different things, right? On the left, you're seeing more of a highlight of the details of this beautiful bag, the details of this beautiful jacket, the nails. It's a bit more of like a beauty kind of editorial shot, whereas on the right, you zoom out, you see a bit more of like the environment, a bit more of the outfit and the styling. Next, again, the same shoot, and then if we just ignore all the stuff on the left for a second, kind of just echoing that sentiment before of the location. So this was taken like upstate somewhere, and the client decided that she wanted to work in like this kind of house, like vintage castle vibe. But even if you just looked at the photos, I picked these because I think that, again, a lot of them feel like they could just be, like sitting on a ledge or sitting on the ground. It doesn't really feel to me like many big moves or anything, but you can still see the versatility and the usage of the bag in different ways. And so that kind of leads me into my next tip. On the left, you'll see I put down telling different stories or tell different stories with the same products or subjects by animating the inanimate, right, which you see on like that far right. I really love this picture because obviously it's a statue, but just that juxtaposition I think is so quirky and gives more personality to the overall gallery, the overall shoot, like you have one model, but then this is something that the client could decide to use in a different way, cropped in or zoomed out. Even down here as well, kind of deciding to crop her upper, like her head and her shoulders out and just show the bag and its functionality. I love this picture so much. A lot of these are also a mix of medium format and digital. I'm primarily a digital shooter, but for this I decided to rent a medium format camera because once I saw the location, the greens, the red of the bag, I just thought it would kind of read really beautifully. So yeah, I mentioned I mentioned the personality point, and then next I put, sometimes doing the opposite of first, I meant what comes first, can help shake things up. So for me, my photos tend to be a bit stoic, a bit still. I kind of like people to just give me like straightforward looks, or sometimes I'll tell people maybe to laugh if it's a group or if it's an event, to kind of get that casual, candid moment. But I think if you're trying to find ways to hustle and flow with fashion photography or switch things up, while I was putting this together, I thought, why not just do the exact opposite of what maybe comes most naturally? As photographers, there's a bit of muscle memory here, right? Where like, you know what you like, or maybe you know how you shoot, or maybe you're used to framing things a certain way, which I know I can get in the habit of, especially for a lot of us who've been doing this for years and years. And it's important to kind of keep our portfolios obviously versatile and add variety. So a tip I thought about that I also try and practice is, if I'm used to having someone just stand with the bag, maybe just something completely opposite, maybe like laying down, maybe something that's jumping, maybe just something completely unconventional from what I like, because I think that helps us push ourselves into kind of more unfamiliar territory, and who knows, evolving our eye and what we may be into. I kind of made this point before about infinite shots being available in kind of one setting. And I wanted to show this picture, one, because you see obviously this beautiful dress on this young woman. This is actually Shawnee O'Neal, Shawnee Henderson is her new name. But I got to photograph her wedding. She's a love and hip hop star. And this wasn't a fashion photography shoot per se. Obviously, I just mentioned it was a wedding. But I love that you can always kind of find ways and moments to create fashion images if you are, again, like not approaching things maybe so standard or maybe so obviously. One tip for that is never just sticking to eye level. So in this situation, right, you wouldn't be able to tell that behind her were like her kids, her mom, her dad, her aunts, her uncles, like, a bunch of wedding guests. And so what you see is me kind of cropping down, one, to kind of just, I think the lighting on her face, you can kind of see on the front of her face is really pretty there. I was probably trying to get some really nice lighting and get them out the way, but it's really amazing to me how many different kinds of images you can get when you just kind of change your perspective. And especially when I have, situations where it's, again, an event or like something that's not technically a fashion photography shoot, but I could still get like a strong fashion moment or a strong fashion portrait out. Just kind of changing your perspective not only allows you to get different kinds of photos, but get rid of, background characters or, extra details that you wouldn't need. Obviously, the sky is one, the ground is one, and yeah, it just depends on the setting, but I love this photo. It's a BTS photo that another photographer took while I was taking this. Okay. Let fashion bring, I should pause actually. Any questions or comments? I can't actually see you guys, but. Okay. Let fashion bring life to the background. So again, like kind of putting this together, I enjoyed coming up with these prompts and these kind of small takeaways that I thought I could put together with the pictures. On the left here, you'll see a BTS, well, it's not a BTS image, but it was an image during a fashion show of a designer named Kirby Jean Raymond with Pierre Moss. And he held this really amazing show at Madam C.J. Walker's old mansion. She was, actually everyone should know who she is, but he was the first African American to show during Couture Week. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who knows that fact, but I'm pretty sure that's the official title. And so he did this kind of like creative direction that was inspired by African American inventions. So chess was one of the inventions. And so you'll see there's like a bishop and a pawn and like these different actual chess pieces coming out of this young lady's outfit. But I think for me, what was interesting in putting this in the slide was obviously it's a fashion moment, but with the white background being so plain and not as busy as, the actual place where we were, which was this house and this like beautiful venue, I felt like the simplicity and the cleanliness, this is kind of maybe straightforward or obvious to you guys, but as a reminder, it allows the fashion to really, stand out and to pop and be the focus. On the right side, you'll see the same kind of situation. This is a rapper named Tierra Whack. She's a musician from Philly. And she did a really great kind of collaboration where her fans got to design outfits that were like inspired by Adobe or in collaboration with Adobe. And so she wore these really unique and creative outfits. And it's really fun to, one, work with talent who has very high energy. This photo seems very still, but we had a trampoline on set. I had her with like these oversized like pencils and kind of like props to just hit the design point home. But it's interesting that of the selects, this was one of the ones that made it in, because even though, you can't see, for example, her shoes, which were like fully creatures, or you can't see some of like the ruffles, if she was standing up, it just being, kind of poised, simple, minimal, the background being really plain, right, allows you to really focus on the fashion, focus on the eyes, focus on the hair, even her face, the smirk on there. And then if you're paying attention and looking at her eyes, you can see like some of these, if you're paying attention and looking at her shoes, you can see some of these like eye kind of creepy additions there. So there's kind of like fashion bringing a plain background to life in white. Here's an example in black. It kind of reads a little darker on that screen, but you can kind of see a little bit more of the drapes on my screen. The point still being, whether it's a white background, as you see here, or a black background, and obviously this model, her name's Akesh. I think I might pronounce that wrong, but she's a very big model, and her complexion clearly catching the flash, the moisturization on her skin just created this really beautiful gloss and glow that in editing, I just felt like the black and white was stronger. And then the background also being black, I thought with the contrast and some of the shapes, it really allowed like this plain black background to just, play its role. And the fashion, the earring, which has a whole moment up there, the hair, and then me asking her to kind of turn to the side, I just felt like it was all highlighted because the background was, kept simple. I did another slide with no text, just to kind of show in my head, where it goes from obviously just like a PowerPoint presentation to like, a potential campaign or a potential banner on a website or something like that. And this was, behind the stage at a Fashion Week show. I really like this picture. I'm curious if you guys are into this or like this vibe more, like the colors or the more noir. Maybe by a show of hands, who's into this guy? The colors, the white, okay. And then who's maybe more into this? Oh, wow. Okay, both of them, yeah. Yeah. Can someone, I'm really like curious, can someone maybe share like what in your, can someone share maybe what in their head they see? I think I might have said the same thing, but just to get another opinion. Like why did you raise your hand for this one, if you raised your hand? What is it about this picture? Is it the black and white, the gloss, the mood? That's a good word. The negative space, yeah. Intriguing, the reflection. It's not what?
It's not all lit. You don't see the front of her face, so there's curiosity, there's
And then the highlights, that's a good thing someone said too. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how like this is technically like a proper image and this might to some be too dark or like, but in fashion, I love that. The whole point is aesthetic and mood and energy and like you get to decide, or your client gets to decide like what they want to evoke. I talked about this in February, but editing is something that I'm really big on, and I feel like one of the things I find with photography is like a lot of us will take really great photos and maybe not make the right selects, or a lot of us may, take really great edited shots or like have really good editing, but maybe the photos are not as strong. And I keep trying to find a way to mesh it together and explain my own thinking and my own philosophy. around it because it's very intuitive, right? Like we all kind of just shoot how we shoot or edit how we edit. But then at the same time, we come to places like this to learn and to become better photographers. So I always like to just hear other people's opinions, so I'm not just seeing it through my eyes. Okay, let fashion bring life to the background. So some of you may know my work through, I don't know, coming to B&H before, but I am a celebrity photographer technically and a music photographer. My start was having the privilege of being a personal photographer for Cardi B on sets for music videos for about 6 years or so. And this photo was from like her initial Reebok deal days. So what was really cool was because of the BTS I took being used as stills, I got the opportunity to come on set for not just a music video, but an actual like advertising campaign she did. So this was like 2018, 2019. And even though the outfit maybe like to some is more casual, obviously, like, you know, we can all acknowledge that it's still fashion forward, right? Like it's styled. She looks very like dressed down, but the hair, the necklaces and like the belts, I felt like it was a cool addition to this presentation. And on the left, I have down here, with styling and setting, don't just do what looks good, be unafraid to place unconventional looks in unconventional backgrounds. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm the kind of photographer who likes to juxtapose things a lot. So I'll be like, oh, you know, let's put this person in a dress next to like a laundry machine, or let's put them in the corner just like eating an icy. Like I just had a shoot last week that was like in Harlem, but like I decided to make sorry, I kind of talk really fast. In Harlem was where the shoot was, but I decided to make the girls' outfits very kind of dainty and just sort of like show this juxtaposition of like the brownstone and the corners and the block, but also something that maybe felt a little more editorial, a little more sophisticated. So with the point I'm making about the unconventional looks and unconventional backgrounds, I think that that can be a good kind of hustle tip and trick with photography where, you know, maybe you feel like you need to have a studio, right? Maybe some of you feel like, you know, you need to have a whole set and everything. A lot of the work I started off doing, and I'm sure a lot of you maybe also started off doing, just comes from working with your resources, right? Working with what you got. So in this situation, this background looks like a very kind of old school retro hair salon. And even though this was, you know, not my local hair salon, I'm sure like if I walked around my neighborhood, I could find something that felt, you know, just maybe mundane or chill to use as a backdrop or a background. And in this situation with Cardi's like hair and the jewelry and everything kind of being a little more fancy, I would say, for, not fancy, but a little more distinct than the background, I thought that it was a good kind of example of one of the things I love about fashion photography, where the background is very dull, very, you know, desaturated, but she herself just having this color and like this attitude and this energy, even the stance, still gives it this like kind of strong photo without, you know, us having to run and find like a perfect background, a perfect backdrop, but just acknowledging the reality and the authenticity of this moment. So very long-winded, but I promise there's a method to my madness. This is a more kind of, I guess, straightforward fashion photo. The one on the right, obviously, I showed towards the beginning. And this is my favorite photo from that series. I think just the drama, like, that's one of the things I love the most about fashion and fashion photography is just, there's so many clothes, there's so many different types of clothes, there's so many ways to style them, and Mother Nature sometimes, like, you know, does the work for us. And here we kind of have like this natural wind moment, the backdrop being this beautiful like sea. And then on the left, even though these are completely different places across the world from each other, I thought they would be good to pair together because you're seeing, you know, that yellow, that blue, but also two different ways that backgrounds can kind of bring fashion to life, right? So on that left photo, which is another moment from the Pierre Moss couture show I mentioned, she's wearing a chair, I believe. So another invention, another African-American invention that was included. But I think having it be zoomed out versus close up, something about the flow of the not the garment, the garment, but also the curtain on the floor and the backdrop. I love the folds. I love seeing how the light really interacts with just like this right here is like my favorite part of the photo. I just feel like even her face, even though it's really small compared to everything else, it's perfect because it's not showing so much. The bucket hat kind of covers it, so it just feels very moody to me, even though obviously it's in broad daylight. And again, if I was a little closer, you know, even if I showed the yellow bottom of the background, I think just the angle that I'm at, being off to the side or being just a little wider makes a difference than being straightforward and capturing her right on that backdrop. So one's obviously more editorial, simple, the other one's a bit more busy. But I love catching this while I was putting this together because, again, with like the method to my madness, we all have different ways we shoot. And I remember, you know, with photography, people always saying like, you have to organize your website so that people know if you're like an advertising photographer or like a fashion or a journalist. And I'm like, I just want to take good pictures of anything. Like, I don't care what the subject is, you know? But then I got pigeonholed, so whatever. So here we are. I'm a celebrity photographer to most, but I still consider myself just, you know, someone who likes to take good pictures. And I've always been a stickler on like the technical elements of things, as we all probably are. And so flash photography has always really intimidated me because I feel like, I don't know how you guys do it. It just like scares me. It's like, I hope I got the shot. Like, ooh, I hope it's like exposed correctly. And sometimes it comes together really synergetically. And I thought these were good examples. On the left is a model named Jasmine Tooks. This is at the Met Gala last year. Like, in the back, you'll see kind of James Corden, like that guy with, oh, I have a pointer. This guy here. And then there's Pier Paolo Piccoli, who's the creative director of Valentino on the right. But obviously you're looking at, you know, this beautiful, like, green dress, glowing, like, woman in the middle. But I felt like, you know, seeing this against, you know, a plain background, like let's say she just did like a getting ready photo, or she was just against like a step and repeat, would be a very different energy, obviously, than all these men in suits, right, behind her. And then on the right, even though it's really simple, well, not simple, but even though it's less busy in the back, it's still like these steps. I think it's the Ritz Hotel or something. Yeah, maybe the Ritz-Carlton. Still these steps, still like this gold. You know, it's not like she's standing there, you know, by herself. I mean, she's by herself, but it's not like she's standing there without like a bunch of other visual things happening in the back. But I feel like with both of them, the backgrounds bring the fashion to life because it kind of gives context, right? Obviously, like I mentioned, with event photography, you can still get great fashion moments because people are gonna be, you know, it's not just fashion photo shoots when people are fashionable. But if you have that like perception of fashion and photography only being photo shooting, modeling, studio, I feel like you can limit yourself, right? From just capturing moments that can be used or can be seen as fashion moments. So I'm always just trying to figure out how to get a clean shot if I need to, or if I don't have control of my environment, my settings, like in these scenarios, one person's like, you know, at a party. On the right, she was on her way to the Met, so just kind of getting like paparazzi or whatever. I feel like, yeah, when I can't control the backgrounds, I always am still trying to figure out how to make the right select or find the right moment to get my subject's attention, so you can still kind of get photos that, on the left, you know, feel intentional, feel very connected with the photographer. And then contrastingly on the right, where, you know, she's just waiting for a cab, it's like, to me, very much like Sex and the City, very like, you know, just elegant, and her dress is beautiful. So these are two different examples that I think kind of do the same thing, or four different examples, rather, that I think do the same thing. And last but not least, I wanted to include I'm trying, guys. Last but not least, I wanted to include these awesome photos of Method Man. This was for Essence Magazine, a fashion photo shoot, and I think I probably photograph, even though you don't see it here, I think I probably photograph more male musicians editorially. So even though I mentioned Cardi, I think that like when it comes to being on like sets for photo shoots, like this was probably like one of the most iconic musicians I got to work with, and it was a very successful shoot. But I think what people won't see behind the scenes when you're working with talent is you got to still hustle for the shot without hassling the talent. So that's pretty straightforward. But you think about the moving parts of a set, right? Like the makeup, the glam. In his case, just like the tailoring for some things, or like his entourage, his crew, his management. And as a photographer, people are looking at us like, are we done yet? Did we get the shot? Is it, how does it look? Can I see? And there's a lot of stuff going on a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. I think for me, with the hustle and flow kind of theme and just wrapping this up, it's been just really important in my career to find that fine line of like, making sure we're moving efficiently, getting what we need without the talent feeling pressured or, uncomfortable. And that's really, I think, what allows them to give you that trust, knowing that you'll have them look good, you'll get the shot. He wasn't doing anything too crazy here. He was sort of being himself, and I was trying to get these vignettes of him, posing a little bit on the right. I feel like that's like a little bit of an off guard with a really great jacket, but you could tell by his energy, the comfort level, he's a cool guy, he's hanging out, just being, casually photographed. But with fashion photography, it's still important to know when you're working with talent, whether it's celebrity or your models or, whatever the case may be, just kind of hustling and flowing to get the shot without them feeling stressed or hassled or rushed. So yeah, last question. Left or right? What are we thinking? Let's think about it. Let's think about it. Okay, hands. Oh, wait. Everyone decided? Okay. Hands for the left. Okay, that's like half. Okay, hands for the right. Really? I think the right is so, okay. My right is your right. Like it's still, yeah, good point. But it's the black, the black and white one. I'll say my opinion. I think it's just really clean. They didn't run this in like the official photos, but the 3M jacket obviously is so crazy to me. And I think like the black and white, the glasses, like the hair, even the shadow, I think kind of just makes it really edgy. But thank you.